So today I'd like to talk to you guys about the metric system. And the metric system is something that you've learned about probably every year you've been in school, but we're going to learn a little more advanced than what you've done in the past. I want to start with the older system, the imperial system, the system we had way back in the 1700s. So that's the system where when you're measuring length, you measure in things like feet and inches and yards and miles. The problem is it doesn't even stop there, but it includes things like nautical miles, which are different from regular miles. It has chains and rods and fathoms and links and mils and furlongs. It is a crazy system with no rhyme or reason. We know an inch is a 1/12 of a foot, and a foot is a 1/3 of a yard, but you probably don't know that a yard is 1/220th of a furlong, and a furlong is 1/8 of a mile. So this system becomes very difficult to use. All of these units are still used somewhere in some field and in some places. So for instance, if you look at a trash bag, it'll tell you its dimensions and it will tell you that it is 0.9 mil thick. Most people see mil and they think millimeter, but it turns out if it just says mil, it means 1/1000th of an inch. So this trash bag is 0.9 1/1000th of an inch. Heaven help you if you have to convert it into a different unit. It is a nightmare. So we are not going to be using this system. All scientists all over the world are going to use the metric system. And again, you can see the metric system is much easier because it just is some number with a metric prefix. And these metric prefixes make life super easy. And that's what we want to focus on today, these metric prefixes. So in the metric system, you have one unit, and that's it. So with distance, the unit is meters. There are no 1,000 different kinds of ways of measuring length. It's all meters. And then all you do is tack a prefix on. And once you learn these prefixes with meters, the same prefixes will work for things like liters and watts and joules and everything else. So here are the prefixes that you need, and I need you to write this chart out in your notes. Break it up into two separate charts. This chart is for small numbers. This is the chart for big numbers. So pause it and draw this out. You'll notice the small numbers, you have milli, which means 1,000th, micro, that means a millionth, nano is a billionth, and pico is a trillionth. The symbols, little m, make sure you use a little m. Micro is a Greek letter. You saw it on the trash bags. It looks like that. That means micro, micrograms, microseconds, microliters. You can tack it on to any prefix, any actual unit that you want. Nano and pico. Then when you make your bigger values, it's kilo, mega, giga, and tera. And just like before, we go by 1,000, million, billion, trillion, just like we do with numbers and money in real life. You can tack any unit and any prefix together. So you could say milliliters, kilowatts. So once you learn these once, they apply to everything. Again, if you're not done drawing this chart, pause the video, and then restart it after you have these charts drawn out in your notes. Okay, so how does this work? When you see something like 25 milliliters, the way you get rid of the prefix is you do this. You divide by 1,000. So you start with 25, you divide by 1,000, and you get 0.025 liters. That's it. It's simple. It works regardless of what this unit is. Meters, watts, joules, doesn't matter. 5K, 5-kilometer race. K means multiply by 1,000. So now you get 5,000. And I know that the number one error you're going to have is multiplying when you were supposed to divide, or dividing when you're supposed to multiply. So just remember, when you see milli, it's supposed to be a small number. So if this number is bigger than 1, you did it wrong. K, kilo, is for big numbers. So if you do it and you get a small number, if you came up with like 0.005, you did it wrong. Kilo means big number. Okay, so don't mess up your multiplying and your dividing. Let's try another one. Here, I give you the original measurement and I want you to tack on the metric prefix. So now you're working backwards, so this is where it gets confusing. This is a small number, so use this chart, but since you're going backwards, you're going to multiply by 1,000 now. So you take this number and multiply by 1,000, and that becomes 75 milliliters. Again, if you wanted to check it, you divide by the 1,000, and you should get back to your original number. Here we've got a really big number, so we're going to use this chart. This chart's for big numbers, this chart's for small numbers. Divide it by 1,000, and you get 314 kilometers. How do I know if I multiply or divide by thousands, millions, billions, or trillions? Keep doing it until this number in front is between 1 and 1,000. So if you have a number there that's not yet between 1 and 1,000, you're not done yet. Okay? So you can divide it by 1,000 once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. Okay? Or vice versa, once, twice, 3, or 4. So let's try a few more things. So here we have 7.4 e to the negative 5th. We know it's a small number, e to the negative 5th. If you'd like, you can write it out. Or you can just work with it using the E notation. Either way, we want to write the metric prefix, so we can try dividing by 1,000, and that's actually not right because we're actually going backwards, so we should be multiplying by 1,000. This number gets bigger, but it's not yet between 1 and 1,000. So now we try multiplying by 1,000,000. And when we do that, we get 74 microliters. If you want, you can multiply by 1,000 once and twice, and then you'd stop because you're between 1 and 1,000. This one is a really big number. Again, if you want to write it out, you can. I sure hope you don't, because that's silly. That's why we invented the E notation. Okay, and then to get a metric prefix that goes with this, we could divide by 1,000, or 1,000,000, or 1,000,000,000, or 1,000,000,000,000. And again, just do it in stages. Divide by 1,000 once, twice, 3 times, and after you divide 3 times, you should get 72, which is between 1 and 1,000, and that would be gigawatts. 72 gigawatts is how you would say that. Again, the key is looking to see whether or not it's a small number or a big number. Okay, so to show me that you know how to attach a metric prefix to a number, I've created this game that you're going to have to do. I need a score of at least 5 in 2 minutes, so let me walk you through how to do it. First, it's going to give you a number. Check that number out and see if it's a really big or a really small number. In this case, it's a really small number, so your possible answers are the 4 small metric prefixes. Which one is it? Well, what you need to do is get this thing to fall somewhere between 1 and 999. So what you do is you start multiplying to make it bigger by 1,000. If you multiply by 1,000 once, it would be milli. If you have to multiply by 1,000 twice, it would be micro. If you have to multiply by 1,000 3 times, it would be nano. And if you have to multiply by 1,000 4 times, you'd pick pico. Okay? So depending on how many times you have to multiply determines which of the metric prefixes that you use. Let's try another one. This one is a big number. So we're going to be picking from the bigger metric prefixes. To get this number between 1 and 1,000, we need to divide by 1,000. And we do it multiple times. And in this case, we have to do it 3 times. And then we get a number of 2.57. So we check this box. We did it 3 times, so we would pick this box, and then we would hit check. And it should tell you that you did it correctly. All right, so you're going to have to do this for a bunch of numbers, and you want to make sure that you're able to get the correct answer. Let me just show you one more. This is a small number. You would multiply by 1,000 since it starts as a small number. It's a small number, so you want to make sure you pick from the bottom 4. You multiply by 1,000 once and you get 7.22, which is between 1 and 1,000, so you pick it. We only had to multiply once, so it would be milli, and then we hit check. Again, 5 right, 2 minutes, then take a screenshot and turn it in.